Okay. Hey, Cal, we ready?
mean, whatever possible. Andy. Terrible. I like. Should have those little cure candies, all right. That'd be good.
I have to get the time that we're burning in our regular time.
Give you an extra shot.
Maybe. Okay, okay, yeah, just, yeah. Kelly, let me know when you're good to go. Good to go. Okay, we're going to open this public hearing at 5:05. At this public hearing, council will consider zoning amendment bylaw number 1038, 2023 to amend secondary dwelling unit regulations of the zoning bylaw. The bylaw amendment would allow up to 3 secondary dwellings within the R1, 1 and 2 unit residential zone. The public are invited to make presentations to council, and all persons who believe their interest in property is affected by the proposed amendment bylaws shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed amendment bylaws. Please direct all of your comments through the chair. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this hearing to debate the merits of this proposal with individual citizens. Please observe these rules. And if you have concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chairperson. Everyone should be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. If you would like to make a presentation, raise your hand. If you are attending through Zoom to speak during the meeting, please click the hand icon to raise your hand electronically, and you will be in queue to speak. Your final opportunity to comment on the proposed amendment bylaws will be during the hearing, as members of council are not permitted to receive further submissions after the close of the hearing. Again, please direct all your comments to the chair by raising your hand or electronically raising your hand to speak. The zoning bylaw amendment will be introduced by staff, presenting a brief synopsis of the following proposal. Following the introduction, I will open the floor to presentations by the public. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Next slide, please. Can you hear me okay? All right, so I'm just going to start the public hearing by explaining the origins of this zoning amendment, the R1 zone. So the district endorsed their housing strategy in February of this year, and the housing strategy contained a few short-term actions that included an update to the R1 zone to support a program of infill as a way of increasing our housing options and types within the district. Next slide. So these will be the proposed changes. So just a quick note, this bylaw received first and second reading at the June 14th regular council meeting. So the first two changes are actually to our definitions, and these changes are to make it easier for people to put in secondary dwellings with a slightly larger floor area to help make it a little bit less restrictive. So the first one is a change to the definition of floor area in our bylaw, to remove the word basements, so that when we're looking at floor area to determine how big the dwelling can be, you can include a basement in that calculation. So it gives you more space to use to figure that out from. The second change is to the definition of secondary suite. And that's to replace single unit dwelling with principal use dwelling unit. And this is just for some clarity and also so that to make it clear that you have a secondary dwelling within a duplex. So a 2-unit dwelling is a duplex. And so currently you can't actually have a suite within a duplex right now. So the next changes, these are actually to the R1 zone itself. So the zone is largely remaining the same. The uses aren't changing. There's just some changes to density. So how many units you can have on a property. So the first change is to density, and that's to increase the maximum density from 2 dwelling units per parcel to 4. And this will support an increased number of secondary dwelling units on a property. So currently duplexes can have secondary dwellings that are detached. And that would give you a density of 4. So we just wanted to bump that up if you have a single family dwelling on the property. So now you can actually have a total density of 4 on those properties as well. So they're consistent. And the other change was more of a structural change to the zone where we separated out sleeping unit density into its own bullet point, just to make it easier to understand. A sleeping unit is basically a bed and breakfast or short-term rental type use, and we're not changing how many of those you can have. You can have 1. That's the same. So in terms of consultation, this is largely around the housing strategy itself. So the housing committee recommended that council endorse this strategy back in January at their meeting. They supported staff moving forward this amendment to the zoning bylaw, and that was in April. And they also supported revisions to the proposed amendment bylaws at the June 8th housing committee meeting. There were some small tweaks after discussion with the planning and development committee. So the planning and development committee also recommended that the bylaw receive first and second reading at that time. And then in terms of internal departments, we did discuss at length these changes with operations and engineering in terms of infrastructure and servicing. So the current servicing in these neighborhoods are sized such moderate growth in the form of infill through this increased density can be accommodated. So this is saying like overnight, we're not going to see every single property in our neighborhoods add this density. It's going to be kind of sprinkled throughout our neighborhoods, and this is not considered to be an issue with our existing system. And that's the end of my presentation.
Hey, thank you, Sarah. So we are now going to open the floor to presentations. Does anyone in the gallery want to speak to this public hearing? Anyone online? I'll ask a second. Anyone want to speak to this public hearing? Online? And a third time, final time. Does anyone want to speak to this bylaw public hearing? All right, we'll call this public hearing closed. So do we want to go into the next one now? Yeah, just hang on, let me get my notes in order here. Okay, so moving along into the next public hearing. At this public hearing, council will consider official community plan amendment bylaw number 1039/2023 to amend residential land use policies of the official community plan bylaw. The bylaw amendment would implement recommendations of the 2023 housing strategy. The public are invited to make presentations to council, and all persons who believe their interest in property is affected by the proposed amendment bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed amended bylaws. Please direct your comments through the chair. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of the following, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this hearing to debate the merits of the proposal with individual citizens. Please observe these rules. And if you have any questions with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chairperson. Everyone shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. If you'd like to make a presentation, raise your hand. If you are attending through Zoom to speak during the meeting, please click the hand icon to raise your hand electronically and you will be in queue to speak. Your final opportunity to comment on the proposed amended bylaws will be during the hearing, as members of council are not permitted to receive further submissions after the close of hearing. Again, please direct all your comments to the chair by raising your hand or electronically raising your hand to speak. The zoning bylaw amendment will be introduced by staff, presenting a brief synopsis of the proposal following the introduction. I will open the floor to presentations by the public. Sarah, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. So this public hearing is for an amendment to the official community plan. This is also part of implementation of the housing strategy. So these were a couple of our short-term actions that were identified through that process, and that was update the residential policies of our official community plan and update our residential land use designations. Next slide. So this bylaw received first and second reading at the June 14th, 2023 regular council meeting. Areas where the changes are under section 2.4 universal design principles, which speaks to accessibility. Section 3 residential, we added some housing targets and updated the front piece language so that it reflects our more current plans and studies that have been done. Section 3.2, which is our low density residential land use designation. It's a pretty minor change there. Just removes, it supports people putting a secondary dwelling in the front start. Did not support that previously. And then the medium density residential land use designation, there's some updates there to support infill policies there. And then of course our map. So Schedule A, which is our land use designation map, updating where our medium density land use designation is. So when we look at mapping changes, this is our current map. The purple is our current medium density land use designation. This is in areas that are at the moment largely developed. They already have some medium density residential there or have fairly new and well-maintained single family residential development there. So we don't see these as being growth areas to provide our needed housing units. Next slide. And so this is the proposed new mapping where we would look at expanding that area into a lot of our residential neighborhoods where we have large parcels and existing water sewer infrastructure. So what this would mean is, changing these areas from low density to medium. Our low density residential land use designation supports 30 units per hectare, which is about 4 per parcel when you look at our existing parcel sizes. And the medium density residential, that is 50 units per hectare, which is about 6 units per parcel. So it's bumping it up by 2 overall in general. And I should note as well that through the housing strategy, we did do a survey and we, asked about specific areas of the community and, where people could see this type of infill happening and specific housing types we asked about as well. So we asked about different types of secondary dwelling units, whether they're basement suites, cottages, coach houses, or row houses and houseplexes. And these are all formats that readily sort of blend into existing neighborhoods. Have a low impact on the character. So I should point out as well, this is a land use designation, it's not a zone change. And this would be a precursor that would remove one level of red tape for individual property owners that might want to go through a zoning amendment process. Of course, it would still be subject to public consultation and the approval of council. And those would be sort of one-off things. But it would also allow for the district to look at implementing in different areas strategically a new zone that would support this slightly higher density. So we could see a zone that's specifically for townhouses or specifically for houseplexes in strategic areas. And so that's what a lot of these grants R4 that we've been applying for, that council has seen at previous meetings that we've talked about, is to do these assessments and studies to kind of figure out where the best places for these are up front, and what low-hanging fruit upgrades we can do to support this increased density. So consultation, it's exactly the same as before. This all has to do largely with the housing strategy. So our housing committee has looked at this several times and supported it. Planning and Development Committee supported it. Operations and Engineering, they feel that this is something that we can implement fairly safely. This is a land use designation change, not a zoning implementation. So the risk there is low in terms of, you know, high impacts on our infrastructure right away. This would be a slower growth. We did receive 2 written comments in response to public notification for the public hearing, and they raised very similar concerns that we heard from the housing committee. And this is why we started looking for funding to do a lot of these studies and assessments. So comments around waste collection and parking. So parking is obviously a pretty high one. Waste collection was a new one for me. I hadn't heard that one yet. And then the other was talking more about form and character and privacy, which is something that we would be looking at addressing through updates to our development permit area. So we did pull that because we wanted to look at it a little more closely. So we might see that come forward in August for first and second. And that would address form and character as well as privacy. And then the other comments were traffic and infrastructure, just being concerned about whether or not what we have is able to support that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, we're going to open up this public hearing to the public. Does anyone want to speak to this public hearing on this OCP? Online? Calling a second time to the gallery. Anyone want to speak to this? Online? Third and final time. Does anyone want to speak to the OCP? Okay, well, online? No, still good. Okay, this public hearing is now closed. Okay, so moving forward, it's a recommendation that the District of Sycamore zoning amendment bylaw 1038/2023 be given third reading this 26th day of July 2023. Could I have a mover? Councillor Bushel, Councillor McCabe. Any discussion? Council? Oh,
Discussion? Yeah, I just wanted to, first, Sarah, has the building department, like our building inspector, looked at these at all? Because really, I noticed they never commented on any of the stuff in the planning department or in the first and second reading.
Good Chair. Yeah, it kind of got caught up in some staff changes, though I did have some conversations with our chief building official before they moved on and upwards. And, you know, they said it's kind of a pretty standard comment where it's like, you know, building code will apply per usual. And, oh, you know, we've got energy step code coming in. So it was related a lot more to the EOI, looking for secondary dwelling plans to help support, like promote this, where they'll need to have these energy assessments come along with their building permit applications. There is that change in terms of putting these in. So that is a component of our EOI where we're looking hopefully to have those reports provided that come with the plans, or we might hire someone as part of that plan library to sort of rewrite them, generally like a template format for each plan to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. I mean, a few things have kind of changed where we were maybe in May. I know this came to planning and development, but not having a building inspector, but that believe will go through this process pretty quick. It's a little bit of a concern for me passing this at this point, not having them take a look at it and figure out what any implications that are are here. I mean, I have a few questions myself, not so much on this, but on 1039. I just wonder if this should be something we should be waiting until we onboard our new building inspector and having a, another look at this with their eyes. Just want to throw that out there.
Sorry, go ahead, CEO Bennett.
Yeah, through the chair and just to your comment, Councillor Bailey. So we do have a level 3 building inspector that works for the district of Sycamores. We have no problem getting his comments on it. He only is in 2 days a week and we're hiring probably for our new building inspector position will be somebody in training. We do not have that expertise that you're looking for. So we do have somebody that we are working with currently. I'm not sure if you spoke with him or not. I know he's been busy doing inspections, but we do have that level of expertise available. It may not be our new employee though. Just for the record.
Councillor Bush, but then Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, it's not that I mean, I think the infill, what we're trying to do is, with the infill housing and everything is great. It just has a lot of underlying items in there that you read the fine print. There's a lot of restrictions that you gotta make sure you're not going down a rabbit hole. And I it would be good to have the confidence of the building inspector myself. That's what I think.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head is going. Can I just ask maybe a quick question as well? Why, because we didn't have any comments back from them, why didn't it go to even our current one that we had? Is there a reason why he just didn't have time? And that's a perfectly good reason, but did he just not have time to comment?
Apologize, I can't answer that question. So, the contractor is handled by Scott and everything goes through that whole process. So in terms of prioritizing getting permits out, yeah, you would need to ask Scott. But like I said, I have had other conversations with their chief building official all along the way, and it doesn't seem like any sort of an issue. Like our smallest setback in our R1 zone is 1.5 meters, which is consistent with the BC building code in terms of that does not trigger extra costs that would be incurred through meeting fire separation requirements. So, if they need a variance, then that will trigger issues, right? Otherwise, it's just standard because changes in 2018 to the BC building code removed provisions that were specific to accessory dwellings or secondary suites within homes. They're just treated like any other thing now. And they also removed some floor area restrictions from there. So they used to have a restriction like you couldn't go over 90 square meters no matter what. And they took that out as well. And that was to make it a lot easier for local governments to provide housing and not run into that kind of issue. So.
Yeah, I mean, so this is kind of in conjunction with 1039 too, and there's a few components in that bylaw that were changed to the official community plan that I think probably we should look at a little closer. We should certainly have our building inspector comment on. I think we're in this real transition period. I mean, we lost our previous building inspector that had comment on this, and I know that he came to planning and development and commented on it there. We're transitioning to what is going to be hopefully another full-time building inspector. That's the posting, and hopefully that goes well and it goes quickly. So, these are bylaws. These are what governs our town. These are important. They're hard to change afterwards. I'm wondering if we should be putting this off until we get a few more key staff in place. This won't affect anything that's happening on a planning and development side in terms of Sycamores, in terms of projects going forward. But I worry that we kind of jump the gun here and then we find out that we got to redo some of these things, or comments coming in from people that we've now brought on staff that are legitimate and concerning, that we just have to come back to it. And I think if we get these other component pieces in place soon, then maybe in August, this comes back, or we take another run at it through planning and development as well. So it's kind of where my feeling is at this point.
Thanks, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Rich. Anything? No, I thought you had. Sorry, I thought you had. Yeah, I have to agree too. I think there's some things in here that part of the entire package, like 1039, that I'm not comfortable putting out there. I'm not sure if a council has read through this, but we're talking about DCCs. We're talking about reducing application fees and DCC costs for developments. So, and I am all for infill, but we're not in the housing business. I mean, we have a strategy going on. We do want people and developers to come in. But, and even tax revitalization, like there's a lot in here that, you know what, I'm not comfortable voting yes on right now because I don't know the answers to. So, that's just my opinion. So anyone else have, any comments they want to make on this? Sarah?
Through the chair, I'm just curious, if the motion then is to postpone
Yeah, I could make that motion is to,
third reading.
yeah, postpone third reading.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Thanks, Sam. Any discussion? All in favor? Bob, yeah. Opposed? Malcolm's opposed. Okay, moving along to recommendation that the District of Sycamoose official community plan amendment bylaw number 1039/2023 be giving third reading this 26th day of July 2023. Could I have a mover?
If you're just planning on postponing it, then
And this, this can be postponed as well. So
don't even read the
I
rest.
thought we had to go through the process and then postpone this one.
No, it's just a recommendation
Okay.
on there. You don't have to read it and you don't have to discuss it. If you've already kind of collectively agreed, it can just be brought back.
Make that same motion.
I'll second it. All in favor? I guess we don't need to do this. Is that what you're saying?
Okay.
But we're just gonna do it anyway, because that's the way we roll up here. Okay. Recommendation that moving right along, growing communities fund reserve establishment bylaw number 1036/2023 adoption. Kelly, do you want to speak to that?
Yep, sir, certainly. This is just a housekeeping item. So this was a grant we received back in March for 1.7 million under the Growing Communities Fund. And it's a requirement to allocate those funds into a reserve, to establish a reserve and put those funds in there until we've determined where we're spending those funds. And they're to be used to increase local housing supply or to invest in community infrastructure and amenities. It's very loose. So this is just the adoption of the bylaw that was brought forward several council meetings ago.
Okay, thank you. Recommendation that the District of Sycamoose Growing Communities Fund Reserve Establishment Bylaw number 1036/2023 be adopted this 26th day of July 2023. Councillor McCabe, Councillor Rich, is there any more discussion on this? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, recommendation, the District of Sycamoose Phase Development Bylaw, Agreement Bylaw number 1047/2023 be given first and second reading this 26th day of July 2023 to enter into a phased development agreement with SCG Investments Limited for the subdivision and development of a district lot 529 Kamloops Division, Yale District, excerpt plan KAP 82686 and district lot 528 Kamloops Division, Yale District excerpt plans, KAP 77037 and KAP 82686. Get a mover. Councillor Bushell, Councillor Bailey, any discussion on this? CEO Bennett?
Yes, so I'll just give a little summary here. Thank you. Thank you through the chair. Okay, so a phase development agreement for Old Town Bay. This is a very exciting project. So back in 2006, this parcel, this land here was divided into two larger lots. We see where this dotted line is. Here's lot 1 here, and this is lot 2 over on this side, as well as a marina area. Since 2006, services and infrastructure have been done and we've accepted it back in 2013. And the marina has been mainly developed, and there's been no further development. So staff, and this original density was approximately 1,100 units back when this was approved in 2006 and subdivided. The remaining lots have been undeveloped, and staff have been working with the property owner to further develop, further subdivide lots 1 and 2. So what's happening is we're taking 2 lots and we're making 6 lots. So ignore the numbering, but we have lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, which is this big remainder lot, lot 5, lot 6, and lot 6A. So those are the lots. This lot here is already an existing lot, so it's not part of this. But so we're creating 6 parcels here. And we're doing, in addition, we're creating, as this is a large multi-phase development, and it not only is for the subdivision, but future development of these parcels, because it increases our density quite a bit. We're entering into a phase development agreement. So under section 518 of the 16 of the Local Government Act, we're able to do that. And you have to enter in a phase development agreement through a bylaw. So it's an agreement, but it's through a bylaw, and it's between a local government and a landowner, and it's to help create regulatory certainty for both the developer as well as the local government through the build out of a multi-phase development. So it helps the agreement helps identify specific zoning, so what the zones are going to be, and subdivision servicing provisions that will apply to particular phases or areas within the development. So this particular phase development agreement has 3 phases. So phase 1 is the subdividing or the creation of 6 parcels, which are the parcels, that I outlined previously here. And just for the record, this whole parcel here is about 80 hectares. So there's quite a bit of land there. Times that by 2.5 approximately, and that's how many acres there are. So, phase 1 is the creation of these 6 lots, and these are all the things that need to be done. So what these obligations are is there a combination of requirements from our engineering and servicing report, as well as our preliminary layout review. So what our planners and our engineers have said that need to be done in order for our community to be protected throughout this development. So these phases outlined at what phase everything needs to be done. So the first one is the creation of the lots. The second phase is the developments of lot 6A and or lot 6 into strata RV parcels. And then the third phase is the development of lots 1 and or lots 2. So if we go, back here. So phase 2 is the development of 6 or 6A, and phase 3 is the development of lot 1 and or lot 2. So those are the 3 phases. And because the development of lot 1 and 2, there's a lot of significant work that needs to happen here, because there's that stream there. So a debris flow wall is required, reservoir, booster station. So there's significant capital investment from the owner for that. So we don't want the developer to have to do that at the subdivision stage, recognizing that it does need to happen when we develop those lands. So that's, one of the reasons we put the phase development agreement in place, so we could have clarity with the developer and future applicants, who's doing what and when are they doing it. Keep in mind, phase 2 and phase 3 don't have to happen in order. They can happen, phase 3 can happen before phase 2. It's totally fine. This is just a little drawing of the subdivision plan for lot 1. So this is lot 2 over here. This is lot 1. So this one is to be further subdivided into 39 parcels. We actually do have the subdivision application already. We're processing that right now, but we can't subdivide this lot until we have created the lot, right? So that there's a process and we're working through it. So this is some single family homes and some townhouses. Here, as well as part of the phase development agreement, is there's another parcel over on this side here, is to give reasonable access to that parcel. So it's been done through here. And then this is a proposed, and these are proposed, site layouts for the RV park. So this is 389 RV units proposed in lot 6A and 6 here. And then this is what we're getting. I know it's a little small, but I'll summarize it briefly. So what are we getting with this? So we're required to receive about 4.2 hectares of parkland. So what in this phase development agreement, what the community is getting is, and I know it's really small, is we're getting additional parking here. See this green area here? So this is what we call Road C, and there's a lift station there right now. It's a dirt road. So as part of the subdivision, requirement is to construct that road to appropriate standards. We're paving it. We've made that commitment previously, but the road will be constructed and we'll get the dedication of along the side for parallel parking, as well as additional parking here at the end, which will attach to 3.5 meter walkway that goes along the waterfront above the high water mark. So here is the actual property line here. This green line, blue is the high water mark line. So this below it is provincial. We can't do anything with that, but anything on the other side they can develop on or we can get for parkland. So a 3.5 meter walkway in this phase development agreement, it's to be developed at the time of the development of each parcel. So they're going to dedicate it to us at the time of subdivision. It will be constructed at the time of development to a standard consistent to our active transportation plan standard, which is 3.5 meter paved. So that will be a great addition. The plan, we have a DCC project for a future pedestrian bridge here, and this would connect over to this other side and then into our nature park. The proposal also is to give this parcel here as parkland. So we will get this chunk of land as well dedicated as park, which ties nicely to our nature trail. And I think it works out to, I think, the green space, which is above the high water mark, works out to 3.9 hectares, but that whole parcel is over 5. So there's more land there. It's just, we're not getting credit for that dedication there, but we're getting more parkland dedication than the 5% with this proposal. Let's see, is there anything else that I wanted to bring up as it relates to this? A couple other little notes. So as we just a discussion, so 17 years ago is when the original subdivision passed. Some other things that we discussed and went back and forth with the developer as well as with engineering is there was a couple things. So there was a request initially for an additional 5 meters along Old Town Road. So our urban collector road in our subdivision and servicing bylaw is 25 meters. The Old Town Bay Road has been built out to 20 meters. As it's already been built and accepted back in 2013, there's no point for us to get another 5 meters. It really, we'd have to redo the whole road. So it really is no point. So we're not requesting that. They've agreed to a contribution of $25,000 towards our wastewater and water treatment plant capacity to go towards our infrastructure capacity concerns. As well as we're not asking for a traffic impact assessment. It was originally discussed due to the concerns at the intersection there at South Sycamoose Road and the Trans-Canada Highway. MOTI isn't requiring it, and staff and council are working with MOTI to determine what that future corridor plan is going to look like, which will help address that intersection. Some other financial implications, assuming just lot 1, 2, 6, and 6A are developed with our existing DCC bylaw as it is, we would receive about $2 million towards future infrastructure in our DCC. So once this starts getting developed, there will be more money coming in to help with capacity issues. And I know we're in the process of redoing that DCC bylaw, so that 2 million will change. I don't know what it'll be, but as it stands today with 389 RV units and 39 residential units, we would receive $2 million. That doesn't even include the development of lot 2 next to lot 1. So there is money coming back to our community to help with future capacity issues there. In terms of this has been vetted through a lawyer and any comments have already been included in this document. in terms of communication, advertisement needs to be done appropriately. Will probably happen in the next few weeks, and we'll need to do a public hearing, which will be at the August 23rd meeting before we do third reading. And with that, I'm sure I missed some stuff, but I'm open for questions, comments, concerns. Gary Tibbet is here. He is been working with me, handling this project, and he knows much more about it than I do.
Thank you, Kelly. Great job. Thanks, Gary, for being here. Council, do you have any questions for Kelly or Gary? Councilor Bishop.
Through the chair, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Kelly and the staff, all Kelly staff for, working so hard with Gary and Stan and Clint to get this development back up and running. It's been a long time coming. I guess, would you say 14 years or 17 years? The economy went sideways and then things changed but it's now, back on track, and you guys have done a lot of work to get this agreement together. I know you've been working at it for a while, and thank Daryl and his staff for, going through the servicing agreements and everything. So, and, come to planning, and we went through it and asked lots of questions, and so hopefully you guys will have some questions, but I support it 100%, and it's could really change the town, and we'd like to see Old Town Bay fill out and become a viable development for sure. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, I said at planning and development, big kudos to Kelly and her entire team for, I think, putting together a really great phase development agreement that makes sense for the developer, but that makes sense to the town of Sicamous. And it has, protected us, it has protected them. It's really a model of how we should be working together to make sure this town goes forward, and we're developing in a smart way. And if we take a look at, it's not often that we get something of this magnitude in a town that is going to, change us, and it's going to change us for the better, I think. I mean, the connectivity that we're getting from this development into our downtown, into our nature park, and all the way through, once it's fully built out, is a game changer for Sicamous. And I think we really need to recognize that. It sometimes gets lost in this, and maybe you don't really pick it up too much about, they just want to focus on how many units are going in there. But we've had a parcel of land over there for multiple years, decades, that has really felt disconnected. And this plan really connects it in. It really connects into downtown and all the stuff that we're trying to do on a recreation, but on a town building, you just name it. It ticks so many different boxes. And I'm certainly excited about it. And I'm very happy with how this has come forward. And thank you to the developers, because you've had you had a bit of a road, and I think it's great that you stuck with it, and the town thanks you for it. And certainly I've looked at this a lot, but I certainly hope council has a chance to ask as many questions, and I think you'll find that he's very knowledgeable. But I support it 100%.
Thanks, Councilor Bailey. Gary, go ahead.
Well, I've been on this file for close to 16 years. I've never worked on anything as complex as this development. It's involved vehicle, it's involved First Nation, the archaeological event. Over the 15 or 16 years, council's changed. Third or fourth CEO, we dealt with a few different plans, but what I'd really like to acknowledge tonight is that the team that we've developed this with, and it's been a very collaborative effort, which has been very enjoyable, and it's the best team in the 16 or 17 years that I've been involved that I've had the pleasure to work with. So Kelly and I work very, very hard, and Daryl and I work very hard. And nobody was a pushover. It's not like everybody gave into anything. We went through a lot of stuff. There was a lot of really good, intelligent thought.
Yeah.
Sicamous was well represented by your team, and we really enjoyed dealing with them. And I can say that as well on behalf of Clint and Stan. I pay kudos to them, because to carry the significant cost of this project for 17 years takes a lot of ability, and they've stayed the test of time and stepped up to the plate on everything that's been required. And I think Sicamous is fortunate to have them as the owners of this development, and There's lots of stuff now starting to happen behind the scenes for things to begin hopefully next spring.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, I think you've been through like 4 councils now, so, and everybody, every, council, a little bit closer, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, so, exactly. But no, this is a very exciting project, and yes, you're right. We're very fortunate to have this in our community or moving forward in our community. And thanks to Kelly and planning and yourself for being patient and, seeing their dream come to almost fruition. We're just so close. We're so close. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, it's called question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Can I just
Kelly?
one more little quick comment, as I know that Gary's working with the engineers as well. Before we do, we'll probably have to do second reading as amended. We're gonna maybe change this agreement to add a little bit more clarity for the walkway and where it goes. So there might be some minor tweaks for the next meeting, but I'll update you in terms of what those are.
For sure. Thank you. And just, let us know where the changes were. Okay, perfect. District of Sycamore zoning amendment bylaw number 1044, 2023, first and second reading. Sarah, do you want to speak to this before we get into the recommendation?
You chair. Sorry, we're just waiting for the slides to come forward here.
I am confused on where they are.
There.
This one?
Yep.
Okay, we'll get it.
Okay, so this is a housekeeping amendment to our zoning bylaw, which was adopted in January of this year. There's some minor little tidy ups and cleanups here for this, so I just dive. So the first one is to the country residential zone. This zone ended up with two sections that spoke to setbacks for residential uses. So we're just cleaning this up by taking one out of the table. The table is more around agricultural type setbacks. So there's a separate section just above here that speaks to residential. So this makes it a little less confusing. The next one is still on the, is a change to the MUR to seasonal accommodation zone. This one, the densities kind of got flipped in the zone. So it currently has, so this zone is in a medium density land use designation that's for residential. So, and it was brought into place to support stratas that wanted to have short-term rentals or not. It was up to them. And it was meant as an accessory use because the land use designation is residential. So what this is doing is just flipping those densities so that it's now the maximum density of residential use is 120 units per hectare, and the maximum density of living units is 20 per hectare. So the next slide. So this one is a correction for our water treatment plant. It ended up with a P1 civic and recreational zone, which wasn't quite the right zone. It should have had a P2 works and services zone. So this is for things like water treatment plants, sewer treatment plants, etc. So this is more appropriate, and that's a district-owned property, of course. The next one is for the rail trail. So when the zoning bylaw was adopted, the rail trail lands retained their existing zoning, which was R1 under the original zoning bylaw. And it stayed that way because council wanted some more time to consider the impacts of the trail on upland properties, etc. So now it's considered to be the appropriate time to change this to a park zone that would support development of the rail trail and would also tie in with the pedestrian bridge that council's working on. And here's our recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So recommendation of the district of Sycamore zoning bylaw 1045, 2023 be given first and second reading. This 26th day of July 2023.
1044.
Sorry. Staff recommendation, District Sycamore zoning amendment bylaw number 1044/2023 be given first and second reading this 26th day of July 2023. Sorry, I got my bylaws mixed up there. Can I get a mover? Counselor Beach, Counselor Rich, is there any discussion on this? Counselor Bailey?
Yeah, I just have a question. This has to go to a public hearing as well. Okay. Because the only thing I wanted to bring up was just about the change on around the rail trail. There's still some outstanding concerns, I would say, from residents over there, but I just want to make sure. So it's going to public hearing. They'll have a chance to come and talk to us about that change and let their views be known. So yeah, I'm for first and second reading to get it to public hearing.
Any other comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, so District of Sycamore zoning amendment bylaw number 1045/2023, first and second reading. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll go through these, and then if anyone wants some background on the discussions and conversations that were had with these individual stratas, Kelly will be able to provide that background. So these are some site-specific zones for a few properties where they were looking for something slightly different. So our first three are for strata RV parks. So our first one here is for Silver Sands, which is on Silver Sands Road. They've got about 125 strata lots and 11 storage lots. And then they also have a clubhouse there. So they were wanting to retain some of the setbacks they had in their previous zone under zoning bylaw 101. So this change here, the new R1 zone would be specific to the Silver Sands Resort and has some slightly different setbacks built in here. So this is for first and second reading FYI, and it sounds like there is still a little bit of discussion going on, so there might be some changes coming back for first and second reading. We will see as we go forward. Next slide. So the second one is for Sycamore Sands. This is also another older resort. They've got a lot of park model trailers there, and then they've got a mix of amenity use there. In addition to the clubhouse, they've got I think they've got a beach volleyball court, playgrounds, that type of thing. So they wanted to sort of build into their zone a fence height variance that they have, and then they also wanted to reduce their setbacks just to kind of recognize existing siting of a lot of the park models in there. So I think it went from 1.5 to 1 meter. It's a pretty minor change. And this zone again is specifically just for this particular RV park. So this is our RVP2, this zone. And our next one is for the development sites out at Old Town Bay in the comprehensive development area. So staff have been talking with these folks for a while, as you know, from the previous discussion. And so they were looking for a slightly more commercial version of the zone. So the RVP3 zone was created that includes some extra commercial uses in there. I think the biggest change here is the addition of a whole new use called a bunkie. And what this is basically a bedroom that is associated with an RV. This zone does not allow for park models, FYI. And it's not something that you would see it's popping up in residential zones, because this one is specifically for a recreational vehicle park. But what it is an extra bedroom for someone to sleep in. It doesn't have a kitchen or a bathroom, anything like that. And I think there were some slight changes in here too, other than the new uses. Kelly?
Yeah, so adding some eating establishment or some quick commercial uses as accessory uses, that was changing up the parcel coverage here. That's pretty much it.
Okay, and then there was one more. So in that same development, so this one, again, this one's been a conversation for a year or two as well. So up at the end of the road there, up near the cabin, up at the edge of our boundary. So there's a proposed development there that would be a resort residential, very mixed use. So there could be people renting spaces like a hotel type unit, like you'd see at Silver Star or Whistler, but you could also see some of the units being used for full-time residential or as recreational dwellings. And there's a mix of dwelling types here. So this would allow for townhouses, duplexes, threeplexes, or even just standalone single family homes, and it would be a building strata. So this is a whole new zone, the R5 resort residential zone, and supports this specific type of development. So it does allow for a lot smaller lots and with narrower parcel frontage to support townhouses.
Thank you, Sarah. So recommendation that the District of Sycamore zoning bylaw number 1045/2023 be given first and second reading this 26th day of July 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Bushel, Councillor McCabe. Any discussion on this? It's gone to planning, the planning committee. Okay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, moving right along, staff reports, development variance permit 23-224-DBP 1 Wolf Street. Sarah, do you want to take that away before we get into?
Thank you, Chair. So the proponent is not here today in person. They did mention that they may attend online, so they may or may not. For Brad, yep, Brad is online. Just these are questions. Next slide for recommendations. So here's the location of the subject property. So this is out in the 2 mile area. Everybody knows where Montcalm Crescent is, I believe. So they're just on that little cul-de-sac right at the corner there, Wolf Road and the Sickles Creek frontage road. Next slide. It's in a low density residential land use designation, and it is zoned R1 2-unit residential. Next slide. So the proposal is to convert an existing garage with studio into a coach house. So there's already kind of the rudimentary components of a coach house existing there. The principal dwelling on the property is a smaller mobile home. So what we ran into was a floor area issue where your coach house, the dwelling unit portion, can be no more than 40% of the main house. So they do need a variance to support that. They also needed, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the fence height. So what they'll be doing to create that secondary suite is basically just closing off the studio from the garage. So it's currently open to it. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So they just need to put in a wall and a door that would basically be from the kitchen area into the garage. It's pretty simple in terms of them getting a building permit. The structure is already like it's 2x6 construction. It's well insulated, already meets code in a lot of ways. It's just this wall and door that needs to go in. There's already a bathroom, and they need to obviously put in the plumbing for a kitchen. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, there's a smaller mobile home there, so that's why they need a floor area variance. They already had a variance for the floor area of an accessory building. So this is something that's carried over from our old bylaw. We still have this maximum floor area just to keep things from getting too big and out of proportion in our residential areas, but it was made bigger so that, things like RVs into a garage. It was a lot smaller previously. So anyway, they already had a variance for that, so we don't need one for that. Their maximum parcel coverage right now, they're at 17.6. So they're a maximum of 40 is allowed. They're fine to do this. The fence is in an area where the property slopes down at the back into the neighboring property, and they have a hot tub right there. So the current fence is just not really adequate for privacy purposes. So they just want to build a little taller to sort of overcome that slope. So in terms of, a coach house is already permitted use in our zoning now. We don't expect there to be any negative impacts because the building's already there and the fellow is, I believe he's already hanging out there. So, and he does have a tenant in the mobile home on the property, which is fantastic. So the neighbor did provide letters of support for both the fence height extension as well as the floor area and other changes that are requested. The other big piece here is that when the studio went in back in 2008, they were required to have a covenant saying they wouldn't turn it into a dwelling unit because it wasn't a permitted use at the time. It wasn't really a thing. But it is now, it's allowed. So we would need to remove that covenant so we can issue the building.
Council,
Hello?
Oh, I think that was Bob.
Oh. It was Bob?
I think so.
Okay, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
That's okay. And yeah, we did refer this internally. And it doesn't look like there's any big issues there. Like I mentioned, the existing building is already in good shape in terms of moving it forward. Doesn't need a lot of changes to be compliant with code. And are no concerns, et cetera. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation, the council authorize and issue development variance permit number 23-224-DBP to vary the requirements of the maximum floor area of a secondary dwelling, 40% of the principal building to 81%, and the maximum permitted height for a fence, 2 meters to 2.7. For the property legally described as Lot 6, Section 19, Township 21, Range 7, west of the 6th Meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan 12788, located at 1 Wolf Street. Could I get a mover? Councillor Bushel, Councillor Rich. Does anyone have any questions? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and I'm going to read the second recommendation that council authorize staff to discharge restrictive covenant number CA 1351472, subject to building permit for the property legally described as Lot 6, Section 19, Township 21, Range 7, west of the 6th Meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan 12788, located at 1 Wolf Street. Can I get a mover? Councillor Beach, Councillor Bailey. Does council have any questions or concerns or any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, Sycamoose Community Heritage Registry. Committee of the whole recommendation of the District of Sycamoose Community Heritage Registry, including the statements of significance, be adopted by council pursuant to section 598 of the Local Government Act, and that staff be authorized to submit the required documentation to the BC Heritage Branch. Can I get a mover? Councillor Bailey, Councillor Beach. Sarah, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Chair. All right, so I'm going to do a quick little recap of what Barb, from the chair of the District Museum and Heritage Society, presented to the Committee of the Whole. So we'll recap, refresher. So what is a heritage register? It's a list of sites considered by council to be heritage property. The function is to raise awareness of local heritage. It constitutes a recognition of the heritage value of or character of a site. It's not a designation or protection. It does help a property gain eligibility for special provisions of the BC Building Code, so they don't need to meet like step code, for example, and can make them eligible for grant programs like what the Red Barn was doing to try to remediate some flooding and foundation issues. So the proposed sites for inclusion, so council would need to consider them to be heritage property for inclusion. So these sites all have had statements of significance prepared by the museum committee. They did all the research and took all the photos and put it all together. They did an amazing job. So the Red Barn is already designated. It's our one and only beautiful heritage designated site. So that, of course, is a no-brainer. The Bruin House, the Bruin Office, the Eagle Valley Schoolhouse, which is on district property, the Mara Lake Internment Camp, which is kind of the whole 2 mile area from my understanding, the Rama Avenue Finished Sauna, and the SS Whitesmith Wreck. So the SS Whitesmith Wreck is a designated heritage site at the provincial level, maybe even federal. I'm sorry, I should have double checked that. So all the private properties on here, they all came with letters of consent. So the Heritage Committee was, they really wanted to do their due diligence and they wanted this to be voluntary. So the sites they brought forward, they wanted to make sure the owners were on board with it. So all of these, the owners are on board, except for the ones that of course are district property or, there's kind of the Mare Lake internment camps, slightly different beast. Next slide. So what would be required if council goes ahead and endorses the registry and recognizes these properties? We need to send a letter to the affected properties. And as I said, these people have given consent, so this won't be a big surprise. And then we need to notify the heritage minister. And then they would add them to, at a provincial level to another list. So some things, I think it depends on the type. There may or may not be things that can be added. I think that was more of an issue with the caboose, which isn't here today on the agenda. But anyways, that's all that would be involved. So we did in the staff report, I did talk about, touch on a few other things that the district could do at a later date in terms of beefing up a heritage program. But today we're recommending get registered, implemented, and these properties recognized. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Any discussion? Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we are going to move on to 2023 property tax update for information. This is going to go to Kelly and she's super excited to talk about taxes because she always is.
Yes, in lieu of Bianca, yeah.
There was a resolution.
Did for your heritage,
Yeah,
They moved, there was a mover and a seconder.
Yeah,
and they voted
Yeah.
on it.
yeah, we're done. No worries.
Okay, perfect. So this is just here before you today for information. It's just to summarize how much property tax revenue that we collected this year. And, we collect quite a bit for a small municipality. So we collected about just over 9 million this year, 8.6 last year. Keeping in mind that about 4 million of this we submit in August to other agencies. So CSRD, the province, MFA, BC assessment, there's a whole bucket of people that we send that $4 million to, but we're the people who have to collect that 9 million. And at the end of the day, just over 700, so almost 800,000 is still outstanding. So about 8.5% is outstanding at the end of by the due date. This year, whereas last year it was 6.75%. So no surprise with inflation and the cost of everything that there's a little bit more outstanding this year than last, but not that much more. So not of concern. Another little item to point out is our delinquent taxes. So delinquent taxes are 3 years old. And so these are the taxes that the last Monday in May will go to tax sale. These are the properties they'll go to tax sale if it's not paid. Good to note that I believe there's only 19 properties on there this year, where last year there was 25 properties. So there's less delinquent taxes. So we have more outstanding, but we have a mechanism for collecting that. And normally, since in the 10 years I have been here, we've had one tax sale, and it was the first year that I've been here. So normally we do our due diligence and try to collect that money, because tax sales are a paperwork nightmare. So when you take in arrears and a couple-year-old taxes, we have about $1 million of taxes from this year and all previous years outstanding. Last year was about 800 of the same. The number of tax folios, so the number of folios we collected on was almost 2,800. It was up about 30 from the year prior. And a similar amount of homeowner grants were claimed between the 2 years. So only 34.3% of people claim a homeowner grant. That means the remaining, it's a secondary dwelling for them or not their principal residence. So quite high, but standard for Sycamoose. Any other little nuggets in here? This is just a summary. So back in 2019, council directed staff to investigate the use of credit cards. So we actually do accept credit cards. However, we don't pay the service fee. The user pays the service fee. So the taxpayers aren't paying for people to use the credit card. So as of 6.5 months, about 55 people have paid with property taxes and paid property tax and utilities with a credit card. You can see the numbers have, a little up, a little down, but are increasing. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just pointing that out. Our online payments, so about 40% of the total payments we receive of that $9 million, we receive online payments, so people aren't coming in, but the rest people are coming in. And the majority of that $9 million is collected the last 2 weeks of June. So it gets really busy here the last 2 weeks of June. So for that, I'd like to thank the hard work of all of our admin staff and our finance staff that work diligently to collect all of our taxes that pay for all the things that our community does, which is really important. With that, I'm open for questions or comments.
Council, any questions, comments? Kelly, thank you very much. You and your team do a great job, so thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Resolutions, Housing Expression of Interest, Evaluation Committee. I'll read the recommendation first, Kelly, and then you can recommendation that council establish an evaluation committee to review submissions for the expression of interest number 1220-20-148 housing commercial development for leveraging district-owned land, and that the committee be comprised of district staff and the following council members. Could I get a mover? Councillor Bushel, Councillor Beach. Okay, Kelly, you want to take it away?
Yep, I'll be really brief. As you guys are all aware, we do have an expression of interest out there looking for proponents to develop prime parcel 417425, 1.5 acres into a mixed use building and some family townhouses. We had a site meeting. Was that last week? I think it was last week, and we did have, I think we're going to get a few good proposals. So I was pleasantly surprised and optimistic by the showing, so that's good. And there's definitely lots of back and forth and questions being answered. So people are trying to produce something that the community needs and wants. With that, it's a very important decision. I definitely don't want to be making that on my own. And so we are looking, I'm not sure quite who from staff will be on it, but a couple members of council, as many as you deem appropriate, would be good to go through. If we get 3 submissions, 6 submissions, I think at minimum we'll get 3, but we could get more than 3. And I think a preliminary review by a committee to determine who should come before council, whether it's 1 to shortlist it, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, I don't know, but I think it would be appropriate for some counselors to be appointed to this committee so we can review them. And the EOI closes August 21st. So it would be sometime that week that I would like to have a meeting with the committee to review the proposals.
So once we shortlist, they will all come to council.
The short list will come to council, correct?
Okay, so before we have questions here, is there value in adding some of the directors, a director or 2 off the ECDF board? For feedback?
Are you asking us or Kelly?
I'm asking you guys. Anyone have any comments?
Well, I'd probably keep it with council, considering it'll be council's final decision in terms of, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just.
Yeah, no, and I realize it'll be council's decision, but it's also good to have a fresh set of eyes in here that isn't looking at housing stuff all the time, and just someone with a different view of what's going on. And there are some really strong business people on our active board as well. Okay, why don't we just leave that? We can come back to that, okay? Because it seems like it seems tough. Okay, so who wants to sit on the committee? I will step up. I will sit on that committee. Anyone else want to?
Do we have an idea of how long the process it is? Like, when does it close? When would we decide?
Yeah, that's a great question. So August 21st is when it closes. That's a Monday, and I'd like to compile that and have a meeting at some point that week, our preliminary meeting as a group, just to review them. And then maybe the week, within a few weeks, we can ask some questions, maybe interview some of them. I don't think it'll be super long, but, and then something will come to council, I think in September. I think our final decision is until October in terms of picking a proponent. So there's lots of time, because really for this project, the biggest decision is picking who's doing it. So I don't want to rush that piece. So we have from August to October between the committee and council to make an informed decision.
Yeah, perfect. Counselor Bailey?
I was just gonna say that, I mean, maybe Cord. I think it would, it might be helpful just someone from planning and development be on it. So I was looking towards you, but if you don't have time, I would step up too. Just thinking if we have to do some events and stuff.
Before you answer.
Yeah.
And Counselor Evans, I'll get to you pretty quick here. Before you answer that, you've already been involved in, some development, and so it's kind of it is a bit of a fit.
Yeah, I'll sit on it.
Sorry, Gord.
Counselor Evans?
Yeah, my hand is up. I'd love to help.
Okay, so 3 is probably good. Is everyone good with that? Kelly?
Yep, I'm good with that, and we'll just park the Development Corporation board member for now, and we'll see how it goes. There's already gonna be, there's 3 counselors, probably 2 staff members. That's already 5 people. I think that's sufficient. Yeah,
Well, we can
we can always throw another.
discuss it. Yeah, okay. We can, for sure, we can have Counselor Bushel, Counselor Evans, and myself. So I guess I just need to call the question because I have read it and we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, now we've got a lengthy list of correspondence. The first one is, and they've already attached a letter of support. They've written a letter for me supporting them, so they're a aggressive little group. But Pacific Western is looking at, which is a bus service, would like to know if the district of Sycamoose would be interested in us being on their bus route. They have the e-bus, they own Red Arrow, and they have a number of school buses. So I've been approached by their consultant to see if our community would want to be part of that route again, where they're stopping in Sycamoose, perhaps going up to Kamloops, Vancouver, or to Kelowna. So I guess what we're looking for is if council supports this, and if they do, then our next step would be to survey, to get the survey out so people can. So, Kelly, how do you want to handle this? Is this a resolution?
Yeah, that council supports like a letter of support, right?
Okay, so I'll make that recommendation that council supports the survey, I guess it would be. For the Pacific Western Transportation route to be explored going through Sycamoose.
Well, they're asking for letter of support, so we should say yes to 2 things.
Can we add them both to one? Letter of support and survey. Second it?
Sure.
Okay.
Could I just suggest not to use their letter of support?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
No, no, it's really bad.
Yeah, okay, that's.
We'll write our,
Right our own.
sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Gord?
Can I just ask, and because I haven't used this service before, but Greyhound was, like when Greyhound was here, they also did freight. Did these guys do freight,
I have no idea. I didn't get into the freight business, just the human hauling business.
No, it was a great service that.
Yeah, to have that.
And it was easy for us. Okay, I was just curious. But I support it.
E-bus doesn't, but it's actually really, my kid takes it all the time. Like it's a bus. Yeah, the e-bus is fabulous. It's,
Yeah, and that's, yeah, they own that. Okay, all in favor? Carried. All right, let's move on to correspondence for information. All right, let's just open this up. Does anyone have any correspondence they want to speak to? Okay, well, I do. Okay, Eagle Valley News, Bill C-11, Bill C-18, which is the Eagle Valley News, the government, the federal government, this is a federal bill, which doesn't allow Canadian content on places like Facebook or whatever, Meta or whatever the other social media groups are. So my feeling for this is I'd like to support the Eagle Valley News and not support the bill C-18 because I frankly don't think the government has any business in the media business. I just don't see it. So, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, could I just clarify a little bit? C-18 is actually the bill that's put forward, and now Meta has decided that they're not going to use any of these rules because the content from Eagle Valley News can't be legally used on Meta without Meta paying them something. So it's C-18 actually is the legislation supporting the Eagle Valley News
Pay.
content. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But in the past, most of the media or news media has advertising, right? And the advertising is
Sure.
always paid for that. So this just looks like another way to find funding for or pay for something that really isn't necessary.
Yeah, well, C-18 mandates that they get paid if it's being on a platform like Meta or Google or anything like that. That's where the controversies come from. And so Meta and Google are saying, well, we never paid for it before, and we're not about to pay for it going forward. Therefore, Meta and Google saying, well, we're just not even going to put it on our site. And now this is causing problems because this is how most of the people actually read their content.
Absolutely.
So it's this kind of vicious circle where Eagle Valley News is rightfully concerned that their readership is going to drop, because it probably will, because most people are getting these contents by looking at either Facebook or Google.
Google, correct.
So it's a bit of a
So why,
round and around and around as we go. Like, they want to be paid for their content, but Meta and Google are pushing back and saying, well, we're just not going to use it. So
I guess my point is, why is the federal government stepping into this arena?
I think from their view, they want to have the content creator, which would be Eagle Valley News, writing these stories, get paid for writing that content. And traditionally, with social media, they have not paid. They've just used it. People have posted it on Facebook and said, hey, look at this article. And then the originator, which would be Eagle Valley News, never got paid for that content. So it just kind of got shared organically, and no one who created it ever got paid. So it's kind of like the same concept with music back in the 80s, Napster and all that, right? People were just ripping off music, but not actually getting, the content creator wasn't, or the artist wasn't getting paid. Same kind of concept.
Yeah, see, I don't read it like that. So, okay, perhaps I won't be supporting this, but I think that we should have a look at it, because I think there's more to it than that. I think that part of it is control of the content, like, so none of our Canadian content is getting out. So you have to be, I think part of this is just monitoring content and charging for it, so it's not shared
Yes.
readily. Okay.
They're asking that we not advertise on Meta or Instagram. I don't see Google on here, but it is a show of sign of support. I mean, that would probably be hard for us to do, because that's one of our one of our channels that I think a lot of people do engage with, our Facebook page and stuff. I guess it'll be a little different because our Facebook page is not paid advertisement. I don't know if we actually use paid Facebook ads to amplify like public hearings or something, but yeah. I mean,
Well, maybe we should sit down and have a conversation with Eagle Valley News and see exactly what they're looking for, and maybe just get a little bit more information before we do anything on that. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Anyone else have anything on correspondence? Go ahead.
just one, and yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of point out the anti-whistling letter. I'm obviously he sent this before somebody was just recently killed on our railway track. So I'm not bringing this up to, shame him or anything, but just to remind, we had that discussion here, council, and it was brought up, I think by Councillor Rich, about whistles are there for a reason. And, I read his letter today, and, I certainly don't agree with it, but, just to say, I know whistles can be an inconvenience, but they are also, we should be reminded there's a safety aspect to it as well. So.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons that we decided that we would just set that to the side for a bit. Anyone else? Okay, let's open it up to gallery. Deb?
Just in case there's anybody online that wasn't earlier, just a reminder, we've got our first annual pickleball tournament this Saturday. And the pickleball courts are open and being well used, and we welcome everybody else to use them too.
Will you be dressed up?
And I'll be dressed up as a pickle.
That's awesome. I will be there at 8:30.
Love it.
Well, you people always start things so early in the morning. Anyone else? Anyone online? Oh, Brian, go ahead.
I'm just wondering. On that development out of Old Town. What the phasing is for that pedestrian bridge. Across the Eagle and. Pathway.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Great question. So the pathway will be dedicated to us at the time it's subdivided. The actual construction of it will be when each lot is developed. So lots 1 and 2, when that gets developed, that piece will get done. And when 6 and 6A, that piece will be developed. So it'll be in a few chunks. It will be all right away, but it will be district property right away. It just won't be necessarily a perfect paved path right away. The pedestrian bridge, that's on us to complete. So it's a project identified in our development cost charge bylaw. So we're able to collect money from developers regardless of where they develop in town. And it goes into this pool, and then we complete that bridge. So depending on the timing of the development out there, as well as our development cost charges we've received and our financial plan, it'll be in there at some point.
Is that a change from the original agreement?
No, there was talk of, and there still is, we just haven't confirmed it. So instead of some of those developers paying development cost charges, they would complete the bridge and get a development cost charge credit. So they may very well do the bridge and get the credit, recognizing it benefits their developments as well. So that's on the table, and that's really on them. There's no requirement for them to do it, but they're able to do that and get a credit for it.
Go ahead, Brian.
Second question is traffic. Now, right now, Walmart accessing Trans-Canada, there's delays at that intersection. I know personally I've had to wait 15-20 minutes. With 4 trucks in me, and they're all turning right this time of year. It hasn't been a problem outside of the summer, but if we get 1,100 doors down there, that's going to significantly impact traffic and delays for everyone, including railway crossing. So are we looking at anything either as a district or as a developer to mitigate what could be a real bottleneck?
Yeah, so through that, we recognize that intersection, at some point will reach its max capacity. At what point that is, we don't know. But what we do know is we're working closely. We're trying to get information from MOTI, and we have for a while, to help identify what that's going to look like there, where the frontage road is. And so we're working with MOTI to try to figure out what that's gonna look like in that section. Cause that's not the only intersection where there's a problem in that stretch, so we really need to work with them over the next year or two and identify where's the frontage road going, how's that gonna look for our community? Yes.
Go ahead, Pam.
I just wanted to comment too, as there's another letter lower from Stephanie May about the concerns about the Trans-Canada and pedestrian crossings, and it's all part of the same issue that we have to address with some kind of crossing for both pedestrians and safe vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. That will probably be part of a conversation at UBCM as well.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to recommend that the regular council meeting for July 26, 2023 be adjourned, the time being 6:35. Could I get a mover? Councillor McCabe, Councillor Beach, all in favor, and we're done.
Bob.
Love you all.
Bye-bye.